Hi, dear students. Um, I hope you have had a really good week. This week off. I hope you have enjoyed it. Well, so first of all, I'm here because I want to make like a summary of all the subject, not the subjects, but the topics that we have been studying through the last 3 or 4 weeks during the implementation of the project, so that you don't forget the things easily. And when we come back from the week off or this break, you have all your knowledge and all your memories really fresh. So let's get started. The first part, or the week number 1, was related to the process approach. That is like the methodology that we are going to use through the production stage, that probably we are going to start in 1 or 2 weeks, in which you will start to write your pieces of writing. So as you know, the process approach has 4 stages that you made some presentations about them. So very quickly, the pre-writing stage is the part in which you brainstorm ideas, organize them, outline. Outline is like you write on a paper or something like that, like your ideas or the structure that you will use, and you start writing freely in this stage. Then comes the drafting stage, in which you focus on content. So the idea is that you will start writing too. Drafting is the stage in which you start your first part of writing. Here is in the pre-writing, just they are just ideas, isolated ideas, but in the drafting you start to focus on the content and complete ideas. Writing activity starts, as I mentioned before. Grammar and spelling is not important, so in this stage you just focus on content, as I mentioned before. Then comes the revising stage, in which there is a teacher's intervention, because in the pre-writing and the drafting the teacher does not intervene, but in this case I start to intervene in your production. You check organization, select, include, or leave out information. Leave out is like omit information that you think is not important for the purpose of your writing. Then comes the editing stage. Teacher checks students' work to provide feedback. This is really important. In this stage is in the one in which I'm going to use the correction code. So you receive feedback using the correction code. So you have to start to analyze the things and correct the mistakes. And finally, in this editing stage, you present your final version. We continue. The second week was about essay structure and correction code. What I want to clarify here is that you have to be very clear when you state or when you write your thesis statement, because it is the main ideas. I mean, the thesis statement is the list, or the different topics that you will mention in the body paragraphs. So you mention your thesis statement and you start to develop in the first paragraph your first part of the thesis statement, and so on, the second, and if you are going to discuss 3 things, so 3 body paragraphs. So as I show you here, all the body paragraphs have a connection with the introduction and the thesis statement. If you don't have something here and you include another thing here, so the essay is not gonna be it's not gonna be correct. So there won't be any coherence in the piece of writing. So what you mention here, you have to develop your ideas in the subsequent or in the next paragraphs. That's the idea. That's why these arrows here are pointing to the thesis statement. Here I can show you an example. When we were doing some exercises about the identification of the thesis statement and all that, I told you, if it is not possible to identify it easily here in the introduction paragraph, you read the first paragraph and then the second, and then you come back to the introduction, and you will see that it's easier to identify those parts or the thesis statement. In this specific case, it was an example that we use in class. So here this first paragraph, if you read it, it talks about all buildings. Yeah. So in introduction, say most nations around the world have at least some or possibly many all buildings such as blah 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 blah. They make a list, and then they restate it here. See, that's why I put it in blue here, and I once again put it in blue here because they paraphrase. They say it is very important to maintain this because it is connected with this idea. So all this is a thesis statement. And the second idea is this does not mean progress should stop. In this case, they are talking about progress, and if you see here, if you read here, they talk about modernization and other things related to buildings, constructions, etc. So these are a structure that you must have very clear when you start writing your essay or your piece of writing. Then comes the correction code that I think it was easy for you. Obviously, I put it apart, the collocation mistake and preposition mistake, because they are the core. As I told you before, they are like, yeah, the core or the heart of this research. That's why I'm going to use colors to identify more easily those kind of mistakes. And the rest, you know all of them. You have some material or extra material in your folders. So be careful with this kind. I mean, you have to correct more or focus more on these mistakes. Obviously, the other ones are important too, but be careful. Okay. Then comes the week number 3, in which it was about collocations and use of prepositions. So here we can see like the definition that we already see. A collocation is a pair or group of words that are often used together. So that is the point with collocation. Sometimes we confuse. So here I have some examples with make and do, and there are some differences. I mean, you cannot say make or use the verb make with experiment. You can say do an experiment or doing an experiment, like in this example. Or you say make a decision. You don't say I have to do a decision. No, make a decision. That's the correct collocation. And here we have other examples with other words. Finally, about prepositions, that is the other part of the research. As I told you before, here the main focus of the research are collocations and prepositions, the correction of those kind of mistakes. That's why they are with colors, and that's why I focus the explanation on this. And here the use of prepositions, that is really difficult, as here say even advanced learners of English find prepositions difficult because there is no translation. Okay, so it's really difficult. Sometimes they have like a concordance, they have like a match with Spanish, for example, but most of the times they change. So that's why it's important to know about the use of prepositions. Obviously, there are different combinations. So here we can see some examples. The first one is Helen was really interested in teaching French. This combination is adjective plus a preposition. So for example, if you put here on, I'm gonna highlight it with the blue, or no, excuse me, the green highlighter. And the next example is we will go abroad, however it will depend on our grades. This combination is a verb or plus preposition, because depend is a verb on the preposition, so be careful. So that is the idea, that those are the topics that we have seen so far. So guys, pay attention to this. This is the summary. This is really important, and that's all. Thank you very much for your attention, and hope to see you soon. Bye guys.